Everyone, it's Cass. Welcome back to my channel, What Cass Read. Today I'm going to bring you my October wrap-up. I did post my Halloween TBR and I'm really proud of myself. I actually did make it through all of those books, so go me. And let's get to my wrap-up. So the first book that I want to mention, this is Certain Dark Things, written by Sylvia Moreno Garcia. This was one of my books on my Halloween TBR, and unfortunately, this was the book that I DNF'd. This book sold me on the premise of the fact that there were vampires in this alternate current day Mexico and I guess the world. I did give this 100 pages before I decided to DNF it, and that's because there was just nothing happening. There was a really big push to talk about the differences between Mexican vampire clans and families versus our preconceived European vampire biases. But other than that, it just didn't, there wasn't anything else going on. There was a young main character boy who was supposed to be about 17, but he read like he was 12. We had this evil vampire that didn't really convince me that he was all that evil. There was a female cop that I had just started getting into some of her point of views, but they weren't anything to really ground me. I feel like that was supposed to be the character point of view that was supposed to ground me. That didn't really sell me on anything. And then we also had a female vampire who was one of the first vampires that we meet. She's supposed to be really powerful, and I'm assuming as the book went on, her powers were supposed to be made a little bit more known, but just nothing about it compelled me to keep going. I really hoped for a more Mexican feel to it than what I got. It could have been anywhere in the world. They didn't sell me on the setting of the fact that this was Mexico City, which I think was a huge miss. We could have gotten more nuances for a young boy trying to grow up in Mexico City on the streets, for a young mom, what's it like for her as a cop in Mexico City. We just could have gotten a little bit more. It really could have been anywhere. And so I gave it 100 pages. I did not finish this. All right, so the next book that I want to bring up, this is The Witches of Lynchburg, written by Cornell. This is a novella. It's about these three women who are part of this fictional Irish village. And the Irish village is on a rift, a magical rift of the human world and the fae world, and the human influence versus the magical influence. If I had done a witchy reads for October or a spooky Halloween recommendation, this should have made the list. This was so great. It was just the right amount of spook. It was just the right amount of three women coming together in their own magical powers. It brought in a fae prince. It brought in an evil villain trying to take over the town and open up this magical rift into the town. Packed so much into such a short story, and I really enjoyed it. I did give this 3 out of 5 stars because while I did enjoy it, it still was pretty middle of the road. It was the exact kind of witch book that I wanted to read for Halloween, and it gave me no more, no less, but it did fit quite a bit of spook, supernatural, and atmosphere into such a short book. So, Witches of Lynchburg, Cornell. This is The Wicked Deep, written by Shea, Ernshaw. This was another one of my 3-star reads. It was a book that I picked up specifically and saved for the Halloween spooky season. It's about this town in the Pacific Northwest in Oregon that had 3 sisters who were tried and found guilty of practicing witchcraft, and so they were drowned. And then each year after that, for the last 200 years, they had been haunting the town, coming back every summer, possessing 3 girls, and beginning their killing spree as their revenge on the town. And the town has accepted this fact until there's a newcomer who comes in and tries to right the wrongs that have been happening. This was a very enjoyable rich read. It didn't give me any more or any less than what I was expecting of it, but it was still really enjoyable. The thing that excelled above all other things in this book was the descriptions of the setting, this atmospheric coastal Oregon town. And even though I've been to Oregon, I feel like if I had never been to Oregon, I would have been able to picture the town of Sparrow in this book. It was so well done with the atmosphere. The characters weren't all that developed. There was some insta-love, but it was still perfectly witchy and spooky, and that's exactly what I wanted. A little bit of witch possession and a little bit of, rebellion to try and triumph over evil, and I really liked it. 3 out of 5 stars. Then I also said that I wanted to read The Legends of Sleepy Hollow, written by Washington Irving, and so I did have my Word Cloud Classics edition ready to go, and I did read this, just the short story of The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. I don't know if I've ever read the original story. Like, I've known the story and I've seen different cartoon adaptations. I've seen the Johnny Depp adaptation, which is not truthful at all. I've seen like some Nickelodeon Are You Afraid of the Ghost adaptations, but I just didn't know if I had actually read the original version. And it was quite enjoyable because the descriptions were like a mile long. Like every sentence was like a paragraph long, giving me the descriptions of upstate New York, of this town, of this sleepy town. And I think that's what I really liked about it. I had just spent some time this summer in upstate New York. I guess not upstate. Like if you're in New York City, it's upstate, but if you're in New York, it's just the Hudson River Valley. But I did spend some time in the area that this book was written about, and so it really brought me back there. It gave me some nostalgic summer feels. I just really liked the spookiness that was wafting through the valley, and how the mists come out, how haunting this whole area feels, the legend of the ghost. And we only get like so much of the ghost. I guess I didn't realize that part in the original story, that there's only really so much about the actual ghost. Again, it was just like exactly the right kind of thing that I was looking for this Halloween season. So I did give it 3 out of 5 stars. Then I have A Darker Shade of Magic, written by V.E. Schwab. This was also a 3-star read for me, and I do have a full spoiler-free and spoiler review of this book already up on my channel. If you don't know what this book is about, this is about 2 main characters named Kel and Lila. There are 4 magical parallel universe Londons. There's Grey London, Red London, White London, Black London, and each has a different degree of magic. And Kel is a magician, an Antari magician who is able to travel back and forth between the different universes, the different parallel universes, and that's where he meets Lila Bard, a young pirate pickpocket girl who's got a sense of kick-assness and has a sense for adventure because she wants to get the hell out of Grey London and do something with her life. This was enjoyable. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. It was perfectly middle of the road for me. I did find that I was a little bit annoyed as I was reading this because I felt like I was sold on like parallel universes. After I was reading these parallel Londons, it just seemed a little bit lazy to me how it was all set up. It left us with a really good launching point for the next book in the series. And who knows when I'll begin that one. I've heard some mixed reviews on it on my own personal review that I gave of it, so I'm just like, maybe I can wait a little bit on A Gathering of Shadows. But anyways, this is A Darker Shade of Magic, written by V.E. Schwab. The next book that I have, this is A Court of Mist and Fury, written by Sarah J. Maas. I picked this book up because I had just finished the Tawny Man trilogy, and I also have a review for that on my channel. And it's the 3rd installment of trilogies of The Entire Realm of the Elderlings by Robin Hobb. And if you know me or anything about me and this channel, I have such an emotional investment in anything that Robin Hobb writes that I was an emotional wreck after the last book, and I just needed a little bit of a break. So I was like, you know what, I think I'm going to pick up A Court of Mist and Fury. And it completely snapped me out of it. This book was the book that I wanted all along from A Court of Thorns and Roses, and I'm just so furious that I had to actually work my way through A Court of Thorns and Roses to get to this gem. So I'm a little bit afraid of what is going to happen after this. But anyways, this is book 2 of the Court of Thorns and Roses trilogy, whatever she's calling this trilogy. It follows our young protagonist named Feyre, who accidentally kills a Fae in the first book, has to go back to the Fae world for like some sort of atonement. Then she becomes a part of the Fae world permanently. And like I said, this book was like just shy of perfect. I loved the Court of Dreams. I said that in my Finally Fall book tag. Rysand was one of the best character redemption stories in such a short amount of time. There was so much angst. This was like the angst young new adult read that I have been searching for. Top notch. And let me tell you, the sex scenes, if you didn't learn a thing or two in those sex scenes, you weren't reading properly. Like this just had all the good things. And so it just makes me so furious that I had to read ACOTAR before I got to this. And now I just want to be like, all right, the end. Like, I don't want to move on. And I'm just so surprised of how much I loved it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Did I say that? I just loved it. Where everybody was at 2 years ago, this is where I'm at right now. It was just, I want the story to be over at the end, perfection, Feyre and Rhysand forever. That's it. That was my ship of this whole year. I don't know. Actually, this might be my ship of the whole year. This is Saga, written by Brian K. Vaughn and illustrated by Fiona Staples. This is book 1. So this is actually Saga volumes 1 through 3 in a hardcover bind-up edition with the controversial boob cover, but I loved it. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. So this is the second group of graphic novels that I've read this whole year. I'm trying to read 5, so I'm on like 4 if you count each of the different volumes of this. This was such a surprising read for me. I went out on a limb and purchased the hardcover bind-up because I wanted to read. I have to rest this on myself. It's so heavy. How do I do this? Can I hold it like that? Rest it on myself? I went out on a limb and purchased the hardcover bind-up because I knew I wanted to read this series. Like, I just feel like the kinds of people that I follow on BookTube, Game of Tomes, their channel is like the channel that really turned me on to Saga. I just went out on a limb and purchased the hardcover because I felt like if I purchased each of the individual volumes, it would have been more expensive than purchasing the hardcover bind-up on Amazon, and I do not regret this one bit. Thankfully, this was a gamble that paid off. And it was funny, when I bought this book, my husband was like, that looks like a giant boob on the cover. I was like, it is. It's an alien boob if that counts, but it's an alien boob nonetheless. And I was like, it's a super adult graphic novel. Don't read this if you're not willing to see a few genitalia, some swear words, and some really interesting dialogue from our female main protagonist. So Alana and Marco are in love. They have a baby named Hazel. They have a ghost babysitter named Isabel. We've got a menacing, like, mingling mother-in-law. There's people after them because this baby shouldn't exist. This is a love story. This is a family story. This has some really weird, raunchy bits that you just weren't expecting, and some really, like, unexpected, heartfelt moments. The illustrations are awesome. The narration is awesome. The dialogue is super funny and endearing and dirty, and I loved it. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars as well. Whew, okay, gotta put that one down. That one's super heavy. So there we have it, my October wrap-up. I read more than I actually thought I did, which I think it's because my October finished off really slow. I was reading 3 different things at once, which I shouldn't do, but I was. I was reading Saga, and then I'm still reading The Well of Ascension. Still, oh my god, it's dragging on for me, and that's what was causing the problem. So I thought, like, my whole October was crap because I just couldn't finish Well of Ascension in time, but I ended up having like a really solid reading month. So I think all in all, like, even though there's like a lot of average 3-star reads, I think I can still say that this month was a win because of the 2 4-stars that I ended up with. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter if you want to follow me on social media. So I'm at What Cast Read. It's the same as this channel, so it should be super easy to find. And then of course my Goodreads link is always going to be listed down below for you. Otherwise, you know how these videos end. Talk to you later. Bye.